Hi, welcome to Therapy Podcast. My name is Pilar.
My name is Ryan.
And this week we'll be discussing one of the best films to come out of 2019. It's Taika Waititi's World War II drama comedy, Jojo Rabbit.
Yes, Jojo Rabbit. So Jojo Rabbit, it follows a kid named Jojo Betzler. He's a 10-year-old Deutsches Yungvolk member of Hitler's youth, who has none other than Adolf Hitler as his imaginary friend. Jojo uses imaginary Adolf to pep talk himself into indoctrinating himself with all the tenets of Nazi ideology. That is, until Jojo's developing beliefs are challenged when he discovers a Jewish girl hiding in the wall of his house.
Just a little disclaimer about this film. We will be talking about World War II and everything that does come with it. I wouldn't say we delve too much on itself on the war as much as we delve into the lives of Jojo and the people around him. But I mean, just World War II is in the background, so we will be talking about some subjects that might be a little more on the sensitive side for some viewers.
Yes. So with that, I think we should jump right into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the main character of this film is obviously Jojo, whose real name is Johansson.
Yes.
I don't believe we got a last name, but we probably did.
Betzler.
Oh, Betzler, duh. It's right there.
Yes.
I'm so dumb.
I got it.
Anyways, so I feel like the actor that played Jojo, his name is Roman Griffin Davis. He was spectacular as as a little kid actor. I felt like he was very convincing in being a child who was very excited to become a Nazi soldier. I like it. Like at the beginning, you see him getting pumped up and excited to go to camp to make himself a man to protect his country. And I feel like it's almost like oh my gosh. Okay. It's almost like it was so lighthearted to see that kind of excitement to become something that we now know as kind of monstrous.
Yes.
as simply to put.
Yes. This lovely very imaginative 10-year-old is super excited to become what is historically one of the worst things of all time.
Yeah. You see him at the beginning just talking to his imaginary friend who we talked about being Adolf Hitler, and his version of him is oddly sweet and very positive. He definitely, anytime that Jojo feels like he is kind of belittling himself, his imaginary Hitler is always there to be like, hey, no, literally you can just believe in yourself and I believe in you and one day we're going to take over the world.
Yeah, so that's kind of the first thing that I really wanted to get into, I guess, was the Hitler appearances. Okay. So his imaginary friend Hitler, Adolf, I think is what he's referred to in the movie, but his imaginary friend is very closely tied to his self-confidence, I guess.
Right.
The first time we see him, he gives him this pep talk. Mm-hmm. It just progresses from there. Every appearance that Hitler makes has to do kind of with an encounter that Jojo just had that rocks his self-confidence. Alright, so we see him at the very beginning, and then the next time we see Adolf is after the rabbit scene, where I guess the title of the movie comes from. Jojo is kind of singled out by the older members of the Hitler's youth because they can tell he's doesn't have the killer instinct, I guess. Yeah. So they're here to make one of the young recruits kill a rabbit with their bare hands.
Right.
They single out Jojo. He's okay, yeah, I can do this. But of course he can't, and he puts the rabbit down, and he's shoo, shoo, and it goes nowhere. Anyway,
just stay still.
Yeah. Anyway, Jojo runs off, and he runs into his imaginary friend Adolf.
Right. Yes.
Who tells him, "Hey, it's not that big of a deal that, you know, you obviously don't have a snake mind or a wolf body. Is that the next one?
Wolf body, panther courage.
It's fine. You don't have that. It's not a big deal. But what you do have is the cunningness of a rabbit.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, Jojo uses imaginary Adolf to like take his experiences and like work them into his favor, I guess, to like give him the confidence to go forward.
Right. So, like you said, he definitely uses Hitler as a confidence booster. But as we progressively go into the movie, you see it slowly be less of a confident booster and more. It turns more logical, and then it slowly becomes more of an argument with himself on why he is still believing in Nazi ideology after he's met this Jewish girl who is nothing like what they've told him Jewish people are like.
Right. Right.
So it goes from like, it's all self-reflection, but it turns into positive, into like clarity, I guess. Like blind positivity and like clarity.
Yeah.
So going back to Jojo, I feel like what I really liked about his character and his actor was that he was able to play a good duality in being like this false confidence of a child trying to be a man. But at the same time, he was still a little boy. I believe he was 10 years old. And so there was still moments in which you can see like his little innocence come out. And I felt like it really spoke a lot for the character and made you kind of sympathize with him and his ideology, because he's just a kid. Like, you can't expect him to make like logical moral decisions without like any help of his adults or the adults around him.
Yeah. It's funny, both his mom, Rosie,
right,
tells him that he needs to start acting like a 10-year-old, because she's like, you shouldn't be into politics and being a soldier or something like that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be involved in the war and like be caught up in politics. You're 10 years old. You should be out having a good time.
Yeah.
And then also we see imaginary Adolf tell him, you need to start acting like a 10-year-old. Like, you got to get this stuff in order. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Like you're 10 years old and you don't have a job and you don't, you don't know how to shoot a gun. Yeah. So, a scene that I want to highlight in which Ronan really projects that duality is where he is having dinner with his mother. This is after he discovers Elsa, who is the Jewish girl in living in their house. Where he's having dinner with her and she is like, oh, I'm just gonna not eat right now. I'm just gonna drink some wine, do.
Chew on this wine.
Yeah.
Chew on these grapes.
And then Jojo's like, well, I'm extra hungry today. And then they're like fighting about the war. Or no, she's smiling. Like, his mom is smiling. He's like, why are you so happy? And she's like, well, the war's almost over. Isn't that great? And he's like, no, Germany's gonna win. Blah blah blah. Like,
he's like, why do you hate your country so much?
Yeah, like, I felt like it was really aggressive, and I felt like for a kid to like kind of project that kind of seriousness and also like be like loud and aggressive. I felt like he really put a lot of his energy into that kind of stuff. And I would assume it's also hard. Like, I don't know how much of World War II is actually captured by this 10-year-old actor, but I mean, I would assume it's also kind of hard for a 10-year-old to like spew out this kind of ideology, even if it's just pretend. And I think that's really impressive for Roman to do.
Yeah.
I think he's really cool.
Yeah. Another scene that I thought displayed less of the acting, but I mean the acting too, but like more of like Jojo as a character is where he, he has developed this relationship with Elsa, the Jewish girl, and he starts to write these letters to her.
Oh yeah.
Pinned by Nathan.
Who's her fiance.
Fiance, I guess. Long lost fiance. And anyway, the first letter he writes is super super mean.
Yeah.
And it's basically like, there's some good jokes in there, like, I'm fat now.
Yeah.
Have nothing going for me. But anyway, it's super mean, and he like upsets Elsa, and like she was like, I'm done listening to this, and she like goes back in the wall and like closes the door, and Jojo is like, oh crap. He's like, oh, actually, there's another letter I forgot about, and he like softens it up a lot, and it's like, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't really not want to marry you.
Yeah.
And like just in that little moment, you see like such good qualities in Jojo as a character.
Right. I mean, I think it also goes to show like that scene where he is actively learning how to judge like humans and like emotions and stuff like that. And I think for a character to be written like that, like for a child, I think it's really impressive too. Or just picking up on those little body things and being like, oh, maybe that was like too mean, and like you can definitely see his moral shift in that scene as well. Because he hasn't known this girl for very long, but he like realizes that she actually has emotions and can be upset, and that he doesn't want to be the reason that she's upset.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool as a written character.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So branching off from that, you want to talk about either Elsa or Rosie?
Yeah. So I mean, we've said her name plenty of times, so we can go ahead and talk about Elsa.
Okay.
Elsa is the little Jewish girl who is hidden in their house. I believe Elsa is going to be 17.
Yeah, 16,
17-ish. And I feel like her character, I feel like you would assume that a character like her would be like super meek and like kind of desperate and things like that, but I felt like her character was written very strong and very forceful. Like she was angry that this was happening versus like being like, oh, woe is me. And I felt like that was really cool to see like her take charge of her situation as much as she could.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the actor playing her, I believe her name is Thomasin McKenzie. I thought she did a really good job as well, because she definitely had like a real range of emotions. You know,
right.
we just mentioned her. You said she was very strong, and then we just mentioned her, being very upset in that scene.
To be granted, she was very strong against a 10-year-old. But still, he was a very, like...
A 10-year-old who had, like gotten blown up by a grenade.
Yeah. But she was also very cunning. There was a scene in which the Gestapo
Yes.
had stopped by Jojo's house, and this was after her and Jojo had become friends, and she was out and about, and he was like, go hide while I distract the Gestapo from going up into the rooms. But I believe she made like some big shuffle noise, and then they kind of found her, but she was quick and cunning to be like, oh...
Well, they didn't actually find her.
Oh, no.
She is like, there's no way I'm going to be able to hide from them, so I just like got to come out when the time is right and be like, what the hell are you guys doing here?
Yeah. And, well, a point to the story is that Jojo does have a sister, a late sister, who had died sometime, like some year ago, before this film, or before the film starts.
The story takes place, yeah. Her name is Inga.
And she was friends with Elsa. And so when the Gestapo come upstairs to see what's happening, she creates this plan that, nobody really knows that Inga is dead, so I'm just going to pose as her and be like, hey, why are you in my house?
Yeah.
And I think that scene in particular is just like so nerve-wracking, because you don't know if she's going to get caught in her lie. And thankfully, another character known as Captain K or Captain, what's his full name? Klenzendorf.
You wrote down his full name. Okay.
Captain Klenzendorf, or K, is an ally to
the Betzlers.
The Betzlers, like a friend. So even though he is also within the ranks of the Nazi soldiers, he takes the passport in which Elsa was using to pose as Inga and confirms that that is Inga, even though she is not.
Yeah. Even though it's not quite the girl in the photos,
right.
And even though she gave the wrong date of birth.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that scene in particular really showed the strength and kind of drive that the character Elsa has to survive this war. And I think
it gives her a lot of autonomy as a Jewish person hiding in refuge in Nazi Germany.
Right.
I think overall, historically, we would think of someone like Anne Frank, who, we know of this diary, and I don't know, in my mind, Jews are in hiding and they can't do anything, and they're dependent upon the people that are supporting them.
Right.
But this character, Elsa, while she does have that in Rosie and Jojo's mother, the support of her, obviously to live in their house, she definitely has that drive to survive.
Yes.
And I think that's really important to kind of show that in a movie, because I don't think we really get that kind of thing.
And I mean, this film itself is very lighthearted, so we definitely needed some kind of reminder that even though this is a comedy and it's a film, Taika Waititi himself felt like he had to write this story or had to film this movie, in order to remind people that this was an actual war that happened and actual lives were at stake. And even though this is lighthearted, a lot of danger was happening, and we can't forget what had happened to the Jewish population in the world.
I mean, that scene in particular is it is heavy and it is scary.
Right.
And
I feel like as far as
so tense.
I feel like as far as representation goes too, it just shows a small Jewish girl in such a strong light, versus, like I said earlier, meek, weak, and just desperate.
Yeah.
Which I feel like some other films might project, which, I mean, I'm sure there were desperate times, but we kind of need that duality to show that,
Yeah. I mean, even so, we have the conversation after Elsa meets Jojo, and Rosie still doesn't know. Rosie and Elsa have a conversation, and she's Rosie's you have to be more careful. I can't have Jojo discovering you because he's one of them, basically. Rosie warns Elsa, you gotta chill up here, I guess. And of course, Rosie doesn't know that Elsa has met Jojo already, and in the scene in which he finds her, she instantly has a plan of how she's going to handle this kid,
right?
So she's definitely not super meek or anything,
right.
She's pretty damn smart.
Yeah, she's fucking smart.
So she is the Jewish representation in the film. The film itself is kind of displayed through Jojo's eyes, through his perspective. So when he first discovers Elsa, and it's a Jewish girl or whatever, it's a Jew. So the initial image that we have of her, outside of her face in this wall, is Jojo's like stunned, and he's like sitting back up against this bed, and then we like the music starts to play, and it's almost like a horror movie almost. And we see like her hand like grip around the door, and Jojo's like, "I'm out of here," and he starts running, and he falls down the stairs, which is what anyone would do in a horror movie, right? And then he's sitting down at the base of the stairs again, and then we see like her hand like playfully but creepily like start to walk down the stair rail. Yeah. Yes. And like from Jojo's perspective, I thought that was such a good. It was so well done because a Jew to him is like a monster, you know? And like it. That's what it feels like to him when he finds her. Yeah. And I don't know. I thought that scene was just super good. But then, you know, quickly after that, we learned that she is not a monster at all. Jojo learns that as well. Yes. And she's
just a little 19-year-old or 17-year-old. Keep changing her age. All right, so the next character we want to jump into is Rosie, who is Jojo's mother. She is played by Scarlett Johansson, which out of all of Scarlett Johansson's filmography, this is the one in which I least hate her in.
You just haven't seen the same movies that I've seen.
Maybe. I mean, I saw Ghost World. She was fine. But I mean, aside from Scarlett Johansson, the character of Rosie is, to me, the first time I watched it, I was like, why is she so weird? Because she's very weird in this film.
Yeah, she's very eclectic.
Yes. She like talks to Jojo in funny voices. She talks to herself into funny voices. She's constantly dancing around and like, I don't know. I feel like the second time around, I felt like I understood her weirdness a little bit more. And that is because, one, she is trying to keep Jojo in a positive light, you know, during this time of war. But at the same time, she's trying to persuade, I guess, her son into a more positive mindset to reject the Nazi ideology in which he's been kind of fed through school and through his neighbors in his town. And so to keep him also like playful and a kid, you know, like
she's doing her best to keep a kid-like energy around. He doesn't hang out with anyone. Like, Yorkie is his friend, but like,
oh gosh, Yorkie.
But you know, that's kind of it. You know, she's the main person in his life. So,
and in the film, it's explained that Jojo's father is off fighting the war somewhere else. But as we slowly discover, his father is actually is he dead?
I don't know.
Or is he like in hiding?
Yeah, I don't know if he's dead, or I mean, potentially he's Jewish as well.
Oh, wow! I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I mean, Jojo at some point says that he's like in Italy fighting the war or something.
Yes.
But I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we're not explaining what has actually happened to his father.
Yeah.
But he is no longer in the picture. And it's either he's in hiding, he's actually helping revolt against. Is that right?
Yeah.
Revolt against the Nazis, or he's dead. We don't know.
Yeah. Not sure.
But so Rosie is pretty much all that Jojo has as far as family goes, and like we said, he has one friend named Yorkie, who seems to be the only person who doesn't bully him that's around his age range.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is pretty much just trying to do what she can to like keep a positive light around Jojo, and that's probably why she's so weird, because she's just like trying to be a kid, like being an adult in a time of war.
Yeah. I will say this about Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
So she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress from this movie, and she didn't have a lot of screen time, but her performance, I thought, was really really good.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene in which she kind of like almost ridiculously is like, "Oh, you want your father? Well, fine." And then she like walks away from the table, grabs this jacket, and then walks over to the fireplace and like
Get some soot.
Yeah, get some soot, and then just like rubs it on her face as a beard. And it's, I mean, this is a great moment in the film, but her acting wise, she stomps over to the table where Jojo is sitting, and she slams her fist on the table, and she's like, don't you ever goddamn talk to your mother like that, or something like that.
Yeah.
And she like yells like hardcore at Jojo, as if she is his father.
Yeah.
But then her face is just
Yeah.
like she is caught off guard by what she just did, and I don't know. I can't tell like all of the complexities that she is feeling in that moment.
Right.
Like
the character.
Yeah. And it's like she won the Oscar in that face.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just that shift and where she like scared herself.
Yeah. Like, it was really, really good.
Yeah. That scene is just really great. Showcase of acting both from Jojo and from Scarlett Johansson.
Oh yeah, that's the same one you mentioned for Jojo.
They're both just yelling at each other. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I found her quirkiness like very like off-putting to me. I just felt like she was being too weird, too quirky. Like she kept doing this thing that you're like it's just annoying to me. There's this cute moment between her and Jojo where she's tucking him into bed and she like does it like, and he like he's like trying to learn how to do it. It's so cute. But I mean, I felt like Rosie is also just as important in having just to highlight that there were definitely Germans who were against the war and like definitely felt like it was unnecessary. And while she was trying to fight against it, she also could not reveal herself to her own child. And that was kind of sad to watch because she had to watch her son kind of delve into the ideology in which she's rejecting. And so she can't like punish him and be like, don't be a Nazi, like, because that would,
I mean, that's blasphemous.
Right. It would tip off like a lot of people that she was against the war and it could have gotten them in a lot of trouble. So she herself was surviving in that sort of way in which she had to kind of live with the fact that her son was becoming a Nazi and just pray and hope that he would see a different light and take different paths in which he has been placing himself as a child.
Yeah. So Rosie as a character has this like super positive energy, but then everything that she's going through is like the exact opposite.
Right.
So she has to like, hide the fact that she's sheltering a Jewish girl in their house from Jojo, has to hide the fact that, I mean, I don't know what has happened to his father. Plus, she's like raising him as a single mother at this point. Plus, she's like helping the resistance against the Nazis. Like we see her putting out the little
Free Germany
yeah
flyers.
It's not even a flyer; it's just a piece of paper, I guess. But yeah, I mean, we see her do that. And then at the same time, like, it's not all fun and games with her. Like, we see her and Jojo at, like, the town square where they've set up, like, all of these nooses on display. Yeah. And, Jewish people are hanging there. And, Jojo doesn't want to see that.
Yeah.
But she, like, makes him look at it.
It's like, hey, this is what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
To have this out in display.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a very impactful like scene for the audience and also for Jojo's character, like to see what is actually happening and what his actions are contributing to. And I think it's like it's such a jarring moment for such a comedy. But I felt like it wasn't overtly like explicit. Yeah. And it wasn't that it didn't fit the aura of the film.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, it's such a smart choice from Taika to just show the people hanging like just their legs and like their feet, because I mean, one, the movie is in like Jojo's perspective,
right,
and he's short, like he's literally probably only looking at their like torso down,
right,
you know. Plus, I believe I read something that he thought it was just disrespectful to show like a full person.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple shots in which they were where they were displayed, but I felt like it wasn't like I said, explicit or like overreaching in its and it being like, hey, look at these people hanging. Like, it was just enough for you to understand and get to the point of what the scene is actually about.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, overall, we can move into Taika, I guess, with this, but
yes,
I thought that he did such a good job, like, balancing the tone of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it is a comedy, and it's like a comedy on comedy at times.
Yeah.
Like, there's funny stuff happening with funny lines, and then there's like a comic relief to the funny lines at times. But he just strikes this balance between keeping it somewhat historically accurate and not shying away from that,
right,
while also like displaying kind of the for the Nazi ideology that's in the movie, like how like hypocritical and just
nonsensical.
Yeah, nonsensical. That's a good way to put it. How ridiculous it is, you know? Yeah, and I thought for what it is, his directing in the movie was really well done.
Yeah, it's really impeccable. I mean, I felt like it's such an enjoyable movie while also still being like very impactful on what had happened, like you said, historically. You talked about him trying to be as accurate as possible, and there was a lot of accuracy in which he wanted to display in the setting in which the town that Jojo resided in. It was so colorful and everything. Like, I feel like in a lot of war movies, I feel like it shows people very impoverished. The towns are like, barely hanging on. But while this town wasn't thriving, it still had its color. The townspeople still had, like fashionable clothing because it's like, they already own these clothes. Like, it's not like, they're in war, they're just going to wear rags now. And so I felt like even though this town was a little outside of where the war was actually impacting, you did see like signs of like people scraping for food. Like Jojo at some point is like looking through garbage. They're also like after Jojo blows himself up in the camp, he can no longer be a Nazi soldier. So they kind of send him on little errands to do. And one of them is to scrap for metal. So he would dress up as a little metal man and go around town asking Germans if they had any any spare metal to help with the war.
Yeah.
And so you definitely could see, like, even though the town itself hasn't really been touched, the lives of the people who live in this town definitely have been affected by the war. But not too much to the point where it's like almost unbelievable,
Yeah.
Like it shows like progression, and I think that's really important as far as like accuracy goes.
Yeah, I will say this. So there's that scene at the bridge, and that's just like such a beautiful location. Like that little double bridge thing.
Yeah.
Like Rosie and Jojo are like having a conversation there and like having a good time, and they start riding their bikes home, and then it doesn't take you out of the war for too long.
Right.
Like everything is so beautiful, and they're just riding their bikes down this like lovely little road, but then a military truck
full of like wounded soldiers.
Yeah, full of wounded soldiers starts driving up and passes them, and like you're quickly reminded of, you know, what is happening to the people that are from this town, I guess, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that shot was like a really nice, like, soft reminder.
Yeah.
Without disrupting the film.
Yeah.
Talking about accuracy in the war, let's flip the script a little bit and talk about the inaccuracies.
Okay.
Taika Waititi himself felt like he did not care to do any research more than he had already known about Hitler for this film. He did not want to play him accurate at all. He wanted to play him as dumbly as he could, as ridiculously as he could.
Dumbly?
I mean, kind of just like...
He definitely was really smart with how he made Hitler make a mockery of himself.
Right. I mean, the Hitler in this film itself was an imaginary, like, projection of what Jojo thinks is Hitler. So I felt like being accurate wasn't even in the cards for this character. Mm-hmm. So he definitely felt like it was, like, even more, like, F you to Hitler to, like, play him as ridiculously as he did. He had him, I don't know, like, I feel like the first shot you see of him is, like, he has these, like, bright blue eyes. Jojo's, like, looking in the mirror, and then Hitler's, like, with his eyes, and they're, like, ridiculously blue or whatever. He would constantly be offering, like, Jojo cigarettes, and he's like, dude, I'm fucking dead. I'm gonna free you up. But I also felt like, you know, the character of Hitler was, like, silly. There were definitely, like, sparks of, like, this is, like, a real person who, like, was doing horrible things. And so, he, like, every once in a while, there'd be, like, small bursts from, like, Hitler, where he would kind of, like, be like, Jojo, like, literally, like, this is war. We're trying to take over the world. Why aren't you, like, thinking straight? It was a good, again, duality in having, like, a silly character, but also be, like, serious and representing of what the actual Hitler was for, as far as, like, ideology and concepts.
Okay, so there's one scene I think that showcases these little outbursts that he has occasionally, and it's when he starts to yell at Jojo, and he's like, if there's one thing that a Nazi can't let happen, they can't let their brain be bossed around. And he is bossing Jojo around,
right,
saying this, which is, like, you know, displays simultaneously the irony in Nazi ideology,
right,
but also reflects, like, authentic Hitler
kind of
leadership, I guess, like fascist leadership. And I don't know, I think that's just such good writing,
and it's such a good performance from Taika Waititi.
All right, so those are so we got Jojo, Elsa, Rosie, and Adolf Hitler. Yes. Those are kind of like the main characters. We also have some supporting characters. You mentioned Captain K. I think we should get into
Klenzendorf.
Yes.
Klenzendorf. Yes. So Captain K was an outstanding soldier within the German military before the war has started.
Yes. He was injured. He lost an eye.
Yes.
Or lost sight in his eye.
Yes. And we first meet him at the Yungvolk camp. And he is like, look, I need you to know that I am way above standard for this, but I can't fight for whatever reason. So I'm just going to do whatever. And he starts shooting. He starts blasting. We meet Captain K, and he is definitely kind of has a defeatist attitude against his rank and what had just been demoted, and so he almost has like he doesn't care about this war anymore.
Yeah. He's been betrayed by
jaded.
Yeah, he's been betrayed by his station, I guess.
Yes. And so while he still like feels kind of a duty to like continue with the camp because it is his country and he is still like a soldier, and it's in his heart to do so.
He has to play his role, I guess.
Right.
As the film progresses, we learn, I guess, kind of just based on how he talks to Jojo, that he's kind of over this war and somewhat against it. Jojo keeps asking him about Jews, and he's like, why are you still talking about Jewish people?
Right, yeah.
Like, can't you think of something else to talk about?
Right. You're a kid, for God's sake.
Yeah, in rewatching it this time, I didn't get this the first time around, but Captain K definitely has some kind of relationship with Rosie, Jojo's mother.
Right.
Not like, romantically or anything, but they are...
Like, friendly.
Yeah, they are kind of in cahoots as far as this resistance is concerned.
Okay.
At least that's the impression I get.
Okay.
Because when Jojo gets hurt with the hand grenade, the first thing that Captain K says is, his mother's gonna kill me. like Jojo isn't just any other kid at this camp. Like, he's there at this camp because Rosie knows Captain K.
Okay.
That's the impression.
I can see that. Yeah.
And we don't know this until after the Gestapo leave Jojo's house. But Captain K was there, definitely covering for everyone, for Jojo, for Rosie, and then for Elsa, who he had just met.
Right.
Because she was inaccurate with the date of birth. I think she said May 1st, and it was actually May 7th. Like, I think she looked at that in the
real quick,
brief second that she had to look at it before she handed it over, and just didn't see it correctly or something. In either case, that incident passes. She's unscathed from that incident, and Captain K is definitely covering for them. And I just get the impression that, like, he had to have known something was up, like
to just drop by when the Gestapo were there. Yes. So kind of like in that same theory, I had something that I thought differently, in which so you said he knew something was up, and I felt like he was there to tell Jojo that his mother was dead.
Oh, okay.
I felt like he had stopped by to tell her, like, hey, this is, like, he saw her. Because Jojo at that point didn't know that she had died.
Possibly, yeah.
So I thought that that's why he had stopped by, and then realized that the Gestapo was there. And I was like, like... In that scene, I felt like the thing that gave the hint to me that had happened, like, that's the reason that he was there, is that after he saves Elsa from being discovered, he tells Jojo, like, hey, you need to stay here and protect your family. So I think in that moment, he probably realized it's not a good time to tell him his mother's dead.
Interesting.
But I don't know. I feel like Captain K is such an important character because it also shows, like, a faded disbelief in the war with Captain K, like, through an adult's eyes. Like, a child is still learning, while, like, Captain K is like, okay, well... there's no use in this war anymore, like fighting for Germany, because it's only like leading to harm and disruption to the actual German country. Yeah. I love Captain K as a character. I felt like he was really funny, but he was kind of the straight man in, just to be funny in this kind of movie.
Which is ironic because there are also strong hints that he is not actually a straight man, and
he is actually a homosexual.
Yes.
In this film. And that is also seen with his side character, who I believe is
second in command.
Yeah, his second in command, named Finkel. The first time that I watched this, I did not think that they had anything going on. And like, honestly, to me, like, I felt like it wasn't even a romantic relationship. It was just like a really strong friendship.
You think that?
I mean, I don't know.
No.
Well, I'm like every white historian, like, they were roommates. But, okay.
So there's the German Shepherd scene.
Yes.
And Captain K yells at Finkel, like, get him out of here. I don't want actual German shepherds. I wanted dogs.
He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I should have made that connection. And then he's
he's like, hey, I'm really sorry I yelled at you. And they have like a moment, like looking at each other, like this close, you know?
Oh, okay. Maybe they were like lovers. I don't know. Like I don't know.
And then every time you see them, well, okay, the first time we see Captain K, he has this like trench coat just draped over his shoulders, which is like super.
Sign number one.
Like super gay already, you know?
Yeah.
And he says, I'm Captain Klizendorf, but everybody calls me Captain K. And then Finkel like rips off his trench coat and he's like, Captain K.
Right. So with Captain K's character, I felt like in the first viewing, a lot of what is perceived as gayness for his character, I feel like also delves into hyper masculinity. Because I thought him wearing that as a cape is to be like, I'm like the king around here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then like him making his costume, I thought that was just like him being like, oh, like I want to be this glorious warlord, you know? Like, like, you know, like almost like hairography or like hair metal or whatever. Like it was just him like taking his masculinity to the max.
Yeah.
So I didn't read that as gay the first time.
But then he has like mascara too.
Oh, yeah, I guess he does. So, I don't know, like...
He's definitely gay. Him and Finkel are definitely gay. Too.
Yeah, well, okay, so, like, I didn't... Even after I realized that I was picking up gay signals, I still didn't realize that they were gay until, like, the very last bit of it. Because, there's a scene in which they are, Captain K and Finkel... are like at a swimming pool, and Finkel was sitting in a way in which I thought it was a woman at first, and I was like, oh no, that's Finkel. And I asked Ryan, I was like, does this guy, is he actually gay, like the actor Alfie Allen, is he gay or does he just play gay characters? But I said that not really realizing that this was an actual gay character. I just was like, okay, well, he's just acting kind of gay.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was just like, huh? And then I didn't realize it until I actually said that out loud, that this was an actual gay character.
Yeah. That swimming pool scene is important too in the relationship between Rosie and Captain K, because she is there, and we see like a brief clip of her sitting next to Captain K and Finkel, like talking about something, or she's standing there or something. But at some point, she tells Jojo that she has to go, and where she goes, nobody knows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why else she would be there besides to like communicate, you know, hey, what's been going on,
right?
Like behind the scenes.
Oh wow. Okay, maybe both of our theories are right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, his ultimate Captain K's ultimate act at the end to save Jojo is, you know, Jojo is on the streets after this battle.
Oh, yeah.
And
it literally makes me cry every time.
Yeah, you know, the Nazis have been defeated. They're rounding up all the Nazis, I guess, to like just shoot them all and kill them all. And Jojo gets like you know, caught up and herded into this group with other Nazis. Luckily, Captain K is there, and Jojo doesn't even realize what is happening, but he like rips off his jacket and is like, "Get out of here, you Jew!" And I think he like spits on him at some point.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it was to protect Jojo from being executed as a German soldier, and as a German citizen, because he was wearing the German jacket.
Yeah. Subtext wise, I thought that was like a really important scene too, just like as an anti-war kind of person. Like, you know, yeah, Nazis are fucking awful, right? But then they get defeated, and what do the incoming powers do besides just execute all the fucking Nazis just like they would have done to anyone else?
Right.
You know, even this 10-year-old kid.
Yeah. I feel like it was it was really well done to like incorporate how I don't know how fucked war is, you know, like aftermath as well. Because I mean, you just see Jojo, he's left without his mother, he's left without his like a caretaker like Captain K. He's just a child, you know, living by himself. And as soon as he had told Elsa that the war was over, who knows if she would have left him or not. Like, I do want to like be like, hey, like I'm not saying you can't be hyper masculine and be gay. I'm just saying I just read his gay traits to only be hyper masculinity.
Okay.
Just saying.
Just saying. We have Fraulein Rom. I don't know how to say that word. Rebel Wilson.
Gotcha.
She's another supporting character. She plays kind of like the most exaggerated version of someone who buys in completely to the Nazi ideology. Mm-hmm. Like every experience she's ever had just paints Jewish people in the most ridiculous of ways.
Right.
She
has anecdote after anecdote where like somebody who knows somebody knew a Jewish person and bad things happen.
Yeah. So she, you know, she's Rebel Wilson. She's like pretty typecasted in anything, unfortunately. But for this movie, she is like the over the top comedy. Mm-hmm. She's like there to remind you that, you know, this is not just a comedy. This is like a really funny comedy.
Yeah. I do find Rebel Wilson, like you said, she is very typecasted. You know, this film really doesn't do that much different, but I felt like she wasn't annoyingly ridiculous. You know, I feel like in a lot of movies, she overplays herself sometimes. And I love Rebel Wilson. But I felt like in this film, she had a really good balance of lines and of like comedy, like you said. Like everything she said was just like bonkers. Like,
and then even things she does, like Jojo and Rosie come into the office for him to get like some tasks and stuff, and Captain K's like, anyone have any ideas?
He's like, we need someone to walk the clones. That's so bad.
Walk the clones, put up propaganda, and mail out conscriptions, which are like drafts, like you're being drafted into the war.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And Jojo's like, oh, can I be conscripted? Conscribed? Yeah. Can I get sent to war? And Rosie says, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's give this 10-year-old kid a gun and send him off to the front lines. And then Rebel Wilson comes over there and she was like, oh, here's the conscriptions, here's the propaganda, oh, and here's your gun. And she like takes that at face value.
And then Rose is like, no, put the gun away, you dumbass. She's like, gun?
Her character definitely like makes a mockery of Nazi ideology.
Yeah, and like
especially when it applies to their beliefs of Jewish people. Mm-hmm. But then even at the very end, she's the reason Jojo almost gets executed. Right. Because she's like, here, put on this jacket. They won't know you're a Nazi, or they won't know.
She said, put this jacket on so they know not to shoot you.
Yes.
She's talking about the Germans. She doesn't want the Germans to shoot Jojo, so she gives them a Nazi jacket and then a gun, I think. No, maybe she ran out of guns. She was just giving anybody a gun.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. We got two other characters. So we got Agent Dirtz, who is the Gestapo agent who comes to investigate Jojo's residence. Yes. And he's played by Stephen Merchant. It's almost like a cameo. Like he's only there for that one scene, really. But
God, what a scene.
Yeah. His character is just like literally over the top. Like he's way taller than everyone else.
Yes. Stephen Merchant himself is a very tall man. Mm-hmm. But he also had to stand on a box to appear way larger than Captain K.
He gets right up into Captain K's like face, like face to face to like mid chest, I guess.
It's like this.
He's like a good 1.5 feet taller than him.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
He's so good.
But I thought his performance, while very comical, also displayed like how terrifying this Gestapo was.
Yeah.
Super intimidating, I guess. But then he even has the line like, "Oh, you may have heard that Hitler only has one ball. That is false. He has 4 balls."
Yeah, I felt like his character was so funny, and like you said, so needed to like instill the danger that Elsa was in, and just the fear of being caught, and like how people would just show up to your house to make sure that you were still loyal to Germany. And he walks into Jojo's room, and Jojo, even though his beliefs are slowly like falling off the edge for him, he still has all his like Nazi propaganda like posters all over his room.
He's a Nazi fanboy, you know?
Right. So Stephen Merchant's character, Agent
He does
Dirtz.
look like a doctor of some sort.
You're like making a house call. Anyways, he is like, oh wow, like I'm really oh yeah, he goes in, he's like, oh, this is a boy's room. And he's very impressed that Jojo has such blind nationalism for his country and is willing to do anything for them.
Yeah. But that doesn't let him off the hook.
That's true.
Still needs to look behind every
crook and nanny.
Yeah, crook and nanny.
Yeah.
So we have just one other character.
Yes.
And probably the best character.
Yeah, we saved him for last.
Yes. His name is Yorkie.
And he is Jojo's best friend. Oh, hold on.
Second best friend.
Second best friend. Jojo's first best friend, Spot, is saved for the Freer.
Yes. Yes.
Once they finally meet. But as of right now, Yorkie is his second best friend.
Yes.
He is the best part about this movie.
Yes.
Yorkie is played by Archie Yates. He's just some cute little English kid with glasses and cute little chubby cheeks, and he's adorable. And while I find Captain K to be the straight man as far as comedy goes, Yorkie is kind of like what's the opposite of a straight man?
The fool?
Yeah, he is definitely the fool.
Yes.
He is not integral to the story. No. Very much. But he is, I think, a fun part of the movie that is necessary to kind of counterbalance some of the seriousness that does happen in this film, and to also have someone who's like on Jojo's side, like as far as like age range and like just a kid, just doing the do. And I feel like that is Yorkie's importance, is like he is literally just a kid, just doing the rounds of what it is to be a child living during World War II in Germany. And he like doesn't really believe in Nazi ideology, but it is what everybody else is doing. And where I felt like Jojo is like more like, oh, I need this to like fit in. Mm-hmm. Yorkie's like, well, I guess like all my friends are doing it. Like, I just want to hang out with my friends.
Jojo is like Aryan, like
right.
Blonde hair, blue eyes, while Yorkie is not.
No.
He's not your prototypical Nazi soldier by any stretch of the imagination.
But he keeps climbing those ranks.
So typically we have like, what's your favorite thing about this movie? We're going to do this for this movie as well, but for now, what is your favorite Yorkie moment? My favorite
Yorkie moment? Okay, so I have a few. All right, so my favorite Yorkie scene is when Jojo blows himself up with the hand grenade.
Oh, yes.
And seeing it through Jojo's eyes. You see him kind of fading in and out of consciousness, mm-hmm. and Yorkie comes up to him like all concerned, like, Jojo, and then he just lets out like the most like blood curdling scream. Like, it's so high pitched and it's so funny. He's like, ah! And then like faints.
Oh yeah, he does.
He paints, and dude, that is so funny to me. Like, I can't help but like crack up every single time. But that's probably my favorite Yorkie moment. What is yours?
I mean, I wrote down like every second he was in the movie.
Okay.
But I think probably it is where they run into each other. Jojo's picking up metal scraps, and Yorkie is a soldier now, and they see each other. And my favorite moment is where he's like, "Oh, you're a soldier now." Jojo says that to Yorkie, and he's like, "Oh, what is this suit or something?" Jojo says, "It looks like it's made out of paper," and Yorkie is like, "Oh, it's paper-like." He like runs off, and he's like, "So hard to run in this suit."
There's also the scene where like it's after everything has happened and the war finally hits Jojo's town, and Jojo's kind of lost in the commotion, and he runs into Yorkie again, and Yorkie suit has a hole in the back. There's a hole in the back of his suit, and he sees Jojo all excited and drops this bazooka that he's holding with another kid. And it fucking just destroys the building. He's like, oh my god.
So the very last appearance of Yorkie is he's sitting there in like this very tattered
wife beater.
Yeah, he's in like a wife beater. His
practically
suit
naked.
His paper-like suit has dissolved at this point. And as much as Jojo's been through, to see Yorkie, he's like, oh my god, Yorkie, you're alive. And Yorkie says, yeah, I can't seem to die. He's like, I just can't seem to die. It's so funny.
Oh man. There's another time where he meets Yorkie, and Jojo's like, oh, I have a girlfriend. And then Yorkie's like, oh, like they're in the middle of war or something. He's like, oh, a girlfriend. Good job, Jojo.
And Jojo's like, yeah, but she's Jewish. You're not supposed to be like excited about it. He's
Yeah,
like, oh, it doesn't matter.
He's like, look,
that's where he has the line about the Japanese.
Oh yeah.
He's like, the Jews don't matter anymore. Turns out the Japanese are the only people on our side.
Yeah.
And just between you and I, they don't look very Aryan.
Dude, Yorkie just rolls with the punches, and I love that about him. Like, he literally is on island time. Oh man, if there was any reason to watch this movie, aside by just being a marvelous movie, it is Yorkie, dude. Yorkie is so good. Yeah. Yorkie is the best. And let's move on to other aspects.
All right.
We talked about all the characters. Everyone in this film was so great. It was really hard to not talk about everyone who was in this film, just because what an action. What an action-packed comedy.
As far as aspects are concerned, I mean, the acting is really, really good from pretty much every single cast member.
Yeah.
I thought one thing that really stood out to me is like the German accent. Mm-hmm. It was pretty well done by pretty much everyone.
Yeah. Starting from the beginning of the film, we see as Jojo is getting himself pumped for the Yungvolk camp. He runs out with excitement, and then we get the credit reel where we see that Nazi propaganda of like parades and like people saluting to Hitler is being
like real
like live footage from that time.
Yeah. Like real historic footage.
Right. And we see that being played over the Beatles' I Want to Hold Your Hand, is that right? Yeah. In German. Mm-hmm. And so we see how this fanaticism with being fascist and being a Nazi and like kind of idolizing Hitler is being equated to Beatlemania at the time, and just how everyone was just so fanatic for Hitler. They were crazy about him, and they were like...
Yeah. It really sets the stage for how important Hitler is to Jojo, I guess.
Right.
Or like Jojo's understanding of Hitler like as an entity.
Yeah, he's like almost like a rock star to people.
Yeah,
that's how crazy it got.
Following that, we arrive at the Yungvolk camp, and the next thing we see is like Sam Rockwell on stage at this camp giving this speech, and it is still very playful. And I thought it seemed a lot like the tone was very similar to like Moonrise Kingdom.
Okay,
I thought, which was not what I was expecting going into the movie the first time. It reminded me a lot of that.
That's so funny.
And it's not until kind of the book burning scene does it
like shift.
Yeah, like the tone shifts, and we never go back to that tone. I think. As far as like,
being like cheerful in Nazi.
Yes.
I felt like the book burning scene was very important because I feel like it shows the hesitance in Jojo to like actually immerse himself in this type of behavior, because you see you see him watching everyone else throw these books into the fire, and he takes a second and then he's like, no, like, this is it, I got this, and he starts performing. And then in that moment you also see Sam Rockwell's character, Captain K, like kind of like look at the fire almost in disgust. I don't know if you saw that too. But he's just like this is what we've come to, like erasing history and stuff like that. Like,
the Nazis are burning books, right? That's like an action that an activity that they do. But then later on, Jojo is asking Captain K about, what do Jews look like? How do I know if I find one or come across one and stuff? And Captain K tells him that somebody should write a book on it. Like, that would be very informative or something. And that's what...
as a joke.
I mean, that's what Jojo kind of takes up. But then it's like I thought it was smart to have Captain K suggest that, because he's obviously not pro burning book, even though he's like the leader of this camp or whatever. So for him to suggest writing a book was smart. But then also it displays like the hypocrisy of it all.
Right.
Because the Nazis are burning books, but then also suggesting like, oh yeah, we should write books about Jews,
Jewish,
nonetheless.
Right. That's really funny. I didn't point that out. But I kind of wanted to go back to you relating it to Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
Because for the most part, in watching it the first time, I was like getting a sense of Wes Anderson as far as like cinematography and color goes. But it just like it wasn't as whimsical, which made it not as annoying to me.
Okay.
So I liked it a little bit better as far as like cinema than I would a Wes Anderson film.
That's fair. So, I mean, we can talk about other aspects, but it kind of gets us into like Taika's directing as a whole, I think. Okay, so outside of this movie, I think we have only really seen What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
So, we don't have this large collection to kind of base, what is distinct about Taika Waititi's directing. However, this movie, I feel like, has a lot of unique characteristics, like editing-wise.
Okay.
So there are a couple of like quick cut sequences that I only noticed one the first time we saw it.
Okay.
And that's probably like the best one. Is when we first meet Captain K, he's talking about, could somebody with bad vision shoot like this? But then there's also similar quick cuts when Rosie is being very playful with Jojo. Jojo has the scar now. He doesn't want to go out. He thinks he's going to be made fun of, even more so than he was made fun of before, apparently. And he's like, is it dangerous out there or something, is what he says. And there's a quick cut of like her hand on the doorknob.
And then like zooms in on her face. Yeah,
it zooms in on her face. She says, very dangerous or extremely or something like that. I forgot the line. But then it cuts to like opening the door, something else, and then they're suddenly walking into the Hitler Youth office. And that happens again at the end of the movie when it plays that same sequence with Jojo opening the door
for Elsa.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, even with What We Do in the Shadows, I feel like there's like a heavy influence of, or heavy focus on comedy.
Typically in a comedy movie, there's almost like this baseline for jokes, and everyone's kind of like playing along the same level. But what I felt like is unique about this movie is that each character kind of has like their own
like
comedy,
joke,
like their own like level of joke,
right?
And I felt like that was
Yeah.
really unique, and I think that is a characteristic of Taika's writing and directing.
Yeah, I feel like it also shows in the pool scene where it's like the joke of the kids practicing their like water warfare.
Yeah.
So they're like in the background, and then Jojo comes to talk to them about the book, and then there's a joke of like, oh, like what does a Jewish person even look like? You know, there's that joke, and then it goes back to the joke of the kids in the pool because they're drowning. Yeah. Like it's just joke after joke after joke.
Get in there, they're drowning.
Yeah.
And then it quickly cuts to like Hitler in the pool.
Oh yeah,
that's one thing I know you wanted to mention.
Oh yeah, at the beginning of that pool scene, we see Hitler with the kids like swimming in there, and he has like a gun while he's swimming, like yeah. Like he doesn't really know what's going on, but he has his gun just in case. Going into like the stylistic choices too with Taika Waititi, we is the highlighting of shoes. Along with Rosie's shoes, because, I mean, for the most part, there are scenes where she is seen with her little red shoes, you know, doing her little dance, or just, like, walking up to Jojo. And it is highlighted to bring us to a point where it is necessary to see those shoes, because Rosie is ultimately hung for her actions rebelling against fascist Germany. And when Jojo finds her, he only sees her shoes, and he recognizes those shoes instantly. Yeah. And he like quickly goes into like embrace his dead mother. And I mean, it's like, one, stylistically, you don't want to show like anybody lynched or anything. And I mean, two, this is like, it's like a kid, you know, like acting like. I'm sure it's like just it's not even like a dummy. It's probably just legs, you know?
Yeah.
Just to like kind of desensitize it for the child who's acting in there. And so I think it's really important for that kind of scene to actually take place. But I feel like the shoes are also highlighted again with his sister. Like when we first are introduced to the idea of Inga, we see her name embroidered in her ballet shoes.
Yeah, that brings up another motif of like dancing. Is you know a motif throughout the movie, equating dancing with like freedom. I think Rosie even has a line. She's like, dancing means you're free, or something like that. And Jojo says like, the only people who dance are people who don't have a job, or something like that. Some ridiculous line.
That reminded me of that line where she's like, love is the strongest thing in the world. He's like, actually metal is the strongest thing in the world. And then something else, and then like muscles. But yes, going back.
But with shoes, specifically, the very opening scene where he's being like hyped up by imaginary Hitler. I think it's Hitler that mentions like, you know, even though you can't tie your own shoes, you know, you're going to be a man today, or something like that. To sum it up. But so Jojo cannot tie shoes.
Right.
He can't tie his own shoes. The scene where they're at that bridge, Rosie like ties his shoes together and like trips him up, and he can't even like get out of that.
Right, because he doesn't know how to tie his own shoes.
And then when Rosie is lynched and displayed, we see those, you know, very recognizable shoes. One of them is untied, and after he kind of embraces her legs. He tries to then tie her shoe, the one that's untied, and like he tries for a minute, and then he can't do it.
Right.
And I thought that was really unique because it's like in a typical movie, it's like, oh, now he's gonna be able to tie the shoes,
right?
But he can't. It's not some magical moment,
right,
in this movie. But I think maybe that happens. He can't tie her shoe because his journey, like his transformation, isn't complete yet.
Right. Yeah.
And then at the very end of the movie, when he's getting ready to take Elsa out of the house, finally, he does successfully tie her shoes.
Right.
And like it's only then that he like kind of completes this
transformation. Yeah. So with the shoe tying, I definitely think it was important to show like just because something like terrible happens doesn't mean that's the kick you need to step up. Like you yourself need to like work on yourself.
Yeah.
And I think like while it is possible that like he couldn't tie her shoes because he was just so distraught, I think it's more what's that word where teachers are like, this means this. Symbolic, yes. I think it really symbolizes Jojo as like a child without his mom. Like she would always tie his shoes, and like he wants to do that for her, but he almost feels like he can't do it because she's not here. That could be another theory into that, but yeah. But yeah, I definitely felt like I really liked the motif of the shoes to kind of trot that specific scene along without being too explicit.
Yeah. All right, so one thing before we get into our ratings that I wanted to bring up was just like a couple of facts about the movie. First off, the clones, they are played by Roman's younger twin brothers.
Whoa!
Their names are Gilby and Hardy, I believe. Those are some names.
Those are names.
Anyway, that's a fun fact.
Okay.
The movie itself is kind of loosely based on the book Caging Skies by, I believe her name is Christine Lorenz.
Okay.
What I read, I'm pretty sure that book is much more, it is about a member of Hitler's youth, but I feel like it is not comedic at all. It's very much about, a real boy.
Right.
During real World War II.
Right.
And yeah, so there's that. And the last thing I wanted to mention is just how like international this movie is. So Taika himself is from New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yes. So is Thomasin McKenzie, the girl who plays Elsa, and then Rebel Wilson is Australian.
Right. Australian.
Then we have several British people, both Roman Griffin Davis and Archie Yates. They're both British. Stephen Merchant, Alfie Allen, also British. And then we have Sam Rockwell and Scarlett Johansson from the U.S. And then, outside of the actors, there's the cinematographer. He's from Romania.
Okay.
I'm not going to pronounce his name, but I'll put his name up on the screen. I would not do his name justice. He also did The Master and The Hate U Give.
Oh, wow.
Just to name a couple. The costume designer is Mexican.
Wow.
They did Avatar and also worked with Taika on Thor Ragnarok. And then the composer, who I thought gave a pretty good score, he's an Italian-American who works mainly for Pixar. But yeah, so I mean, I just think it's an interesting thing that, in today's world, even though today's world is still heavily messed up, you know? Like, we still got a lot of progress to make. However, looking at just this movie, it shows how much progress has been made. In 1945, making a movie this internationally wasn't even possible.
Right.
And, that's how far we've come.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right. Anything else before we get into our ratings?
So a moment I left out when talking about Elsa is when she first meets Jojo and she has him in a headlock. She says all these things, but a thing that really like hit me hard is where she said, "We are chosen by God," and like
we, the Jewish people,
yes, are chosen by God.
Yeah.
And I think that really shifts Jojo in a certain way too, like because I mean, you know, if you read into the Bible, like that is the verbiage that is used, and so it's so outside of me, and I'm sure like everyone how how people can follow religion, because I'm assuming that a lot of Germans were Christian.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's like, how do you not
Nazism is like hardcore Christianity,
right? But it's like, how can you read the Bible and still like not believe that Jewish people are quote unquote the chosen people by God? Like it doesn't make any sense. So I felt like that really like hits it hard on like how hypocritical the Nazi ideology is.
I thought it was another really smart moment is where Jojo asks Elsa to write down or draw, I guess write down where the Jews live, and she ends up drawing a picture, like a kind of a caricature picture of Jojo, like with a big head, and he's like, "Why'd you just draw this picture of my head?" or something like that, and she says, "Because that's where we live."
Right, like the image that you have, like that is where we live.
So smart, so good.
Yeah, so good. Another tiny moment, that I left out with Rosie is that when she's teaching Jojo how to do that thing, they're in bed and you see them having like matching PJs, and I think that's so cute on like how like close they are in their relationship. Like he loves his mom, like even if he does fight with her in like the last couple days, like he loves her, and she definitely loves her kid.
Yeah.
Is there any tiny moments you want to head on?
I don't think so.
Okay. I have two more.
You got two more? Okay.
So another tiny scene that I really liked. So the German Shepherds that Finkel had brought to Captain K at the beginning of the film show up later in the film fighting in the war. Like you see them with like makeshift guns or like out of date guns.
They were using anybody they could.
Yeah, anybody that could, and that included the German Shepherds.
Yes.
So I'm glad they made a comeback because that was really funny. Lastly, I want to hit on the scene with Stephen Merchant and the Gestapo.
Okay.
It is, we counted, they hailed Hitler 50 times from the beginning of that scene up until they left Jojo's house.
Yes.
Which is stupid. To say the very least. But it made for a funny moment, and it kind of highlighted on how ridiculous just practices were.
I did want to say about that scene, like it does a good job of, showing, like making a complete mockery of this practice of hailing Hitler, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
But then there is also that one moment where Elsa is there, and it is her turn to do the rounds of hailing Hitler, and this is such a masterful moment in filmmaking, because there is just the perfect amount of like hesitation in that moment when it is her turn to say it, and it's like, it gives you enough time to be like, fuck, now she has to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just so good.
Yeah, and it just goes to show like Elsa's survival skills. Like, it doesn't matter how much she really does not want to hail Hitler, she knows that she has to do it in order to survive. And I think that's really smart of them to showcase in that film, because it's like, you have your pride, you do. What is pride if you're not alive, Yeah. I do think that's like really important to show like how cunning she is and how like willing to survive she is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm ready to go into my ratings. Are you ready?
Yeah. Here, you go first.
Okay, so watching this movie, I rated it 9.75. So so I pretty much have 10s across the board except for sound. I want to say like the soundtrack was great. Just for me, there wasn't a song that really like stuck in my head or like a scene that stuck in my head. But I do recall like the scenes being so perfectly synced up with the action that was happening, and I felt like it was really well coordinated and edited. So I put a 9.5 there.
Okay.
So I just like, because I couldn't like stick a song in my head, I like could not give it a perfect 10 there.
Okay.
But I just put 9.5. The other things for me were editing, and I felt like this was only for one scene that I did not like, and that was when the scene right before Jojo finds his mother in the square. And it was like this random butterfly came up to Jojo and like led him to her. And it's like, there was never a motif of a butterfly before.
Actually, there is.
There is?
Yeah, with his sister, with Inga.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me change it.
We're changing it live.
We're changing it live. All right.
Yeah. Before you see the ballet slippers, there's like a butterfly, like a framed butterfly in a glass case.
So does that make it a 9.8?
Yeah.
Okay, 9.85.
Okay.
Yeah, the last thing was originality. I mean, there's a bajillion like World War II videos or films. Yeah. So I just put it a 9.
Yeah,
I mean,
not
it's
like this.
Yeah, not like this, but still.
Okay.
It's not like, a movie about a man making an oil business in America. Never seen a movie like that before.
Okay, all right.
But I've seen plenty of World War II movies about Hitler and, whatever.
I'll tell you what, that's fine. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Right, so I give this movie a 9.4.
Okay.
Which is in some ways not as high as, like, it's not as high as yours.
Right.
But then other ways it's higher than I think I would have normally given a film like this.
Okay.
So it is fantastic. This movie is fantastic. Okay.
Fantastic.
However, it is not perfect.
Okay.
There's several choices that were made. You brought up some continuity errors when we were just like talking about it, which aren't major. Like nothing. It doesn't change anything, right?
Right.
But that's not even what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The things that I kind of didn't like. So, all right, the Hitler appearances serve their purpose, but there's a few instances where Hitler appears where Jojo is not like in attendance.
Okay, yeah, like the swimming pool scene.
Yeah, so he's next to Hitler when you see him in the swimming pool, but then Jojo's like leaving later on or something, and it cuts back to Hitler in the pool, like just swimming.
Okay.
There's also the moment, so he's discovered Elsa, and he goes back up to negotiate with her, I think is what he's going to do.
Okay.
I think that's the term that they use. And he has on this like colander for a helmet or something. And he like knocks on the door and says something, doesn't hear anything. And then he looks back and like Hitler's there and he like gives him a thumbs up or something, which is fine. But then it cuts back to him like on a closer angle in front of the door. And you can see Hitler behind him. And then Elsa is coming up from behind Jojo, and you only know because Hitler looks at Elsa and is like, "Oh no, like she's back there."
Yeah,
like it's funny, but Jojo doesn't see that.
Okay, gotcha.
So like, I don't really like that.
Okay.
And the biggest one that stands out and kind of took me out of the movie for a minute is where they're at the bridge, and Rosie like ties his shoes and they're like going up the steps and like having a good time. You really see the good part about Jojo and Rosie's relationship. And then it cuts to like Hitler with binoculars on the bridge. And like, I hated that moment. I hated it.
Okay.
If I was going to be completely objective, I would have ranked it not significantly lower, but a little lower than a 9.4.
Okay.
That being said, there were so many like good moments in the movie that it raised it up.
Okay. Yes.
One, we mentioned like the shoes. Another motif was the do what they can or do what I can motif. We first see it when Rosie shows Jojo the display of dead Jewish people in the square. Jojo asked what they did, and Rosie said they did what they could.
Yeah.
The next time we hear that is when Rosie is acting like Jojo's father, talking about herself.
Right.
She says that she's just doing what she can. And then the last time we hear that is when Jojo is looking in the mirror at the very end of the movie when he's about to free Elsa, I guess, from the house. And he says something like, Jojo, it's him talking to himself for the first time, really. No imaginary Hitler or anything. And he says, just do what you can.
Just do what you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Stuff like that really makes this film what it is.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yeah. I feel like it makes it believable. Like, sometimes, like, doing our best is just doing what we can. And we have to kind of, like, keep ourselves at a very realistic standpoint.
Yeah. All right. So, what is your one favorite thing about this movie?
Okay, so a favorite thing that I did not mention that I felt like is still like a really high up there is when Elsa's talking about Nathan, her fiance. She talks about him really liking Rilke
Yeah.
as a poet. And, you know, Jojo goes to find like books about him or whatever and writes poetry in the same sort of style for Elsa, pretending that he is Nathan.
Yes.
And at some point, they're like discussing on who like the Jewish people have on their side, who the Germans have on their side, and he's like, "Oh, well, we have Rilke or whatever," and she's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. You're like, he's your new favorite poet." And I feel like that's such a little kid moment. Like you will mention like one thing to them. And then they'll, like, keep mentioning, like, you'll say a joke, and they'll, like, tell you that joke a million times. Yeah. And I thought that was really cute and, like, very realistic of, like, a kid like Jojo.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
I have two favorite moments.
Okay.
So, one is much more positive, and one is kind of a negative moment.
Okay.
Negative, I don't know if that's the right word. More somber moment in the movie. I'll do the positive one first. Okay, so Rosie, she's extremely like goofy and playful and stuff. And at some point she is like sneaking into the house late at night. Jojo at this point has found Elsa, but I mean, Rosie never knows that he found Elsa.
Right.
But Jojo is sitting up in the living room waiting on her to get home with like the pitchfork from like the fireplace or something. And Rosie sneaks in and she like is like creeping up, you know, and then she sees Jojo on the couch and she's like, "Oh, I was just like doing this," which that's funny in and of itself.
Yeah.
But then she like puts her hat up or something and she walks over and mimes opening the door like into the living room. There's no door. It's an open doorway. She just mimes
like, "Honey, I'm home." Yeah, that's really fucking good.
That is such a hilarious moment.
This movie is just so good.
It's so fast you almost miss it.
Yeah.
My other, like, that's my favorite like thing that happens in the movie. I think my favorite like film aspect quality is in the scene where he finds Rosie on display in the town square, and he tries to tie her shoe. We mentioned that. He can't do it. And after that, the score kind of sets in, and we see these cuts to like roofs in the town square, and they all look like they have I don't know what they're called, like dormer windows in the roofs, but they all look like eyes.
Right.
And there's nobody in the square looking at Jojo, but from a movie from his perspective, to have these cuts to like these various sets of eyes on him, that's just such a good like quality moment in the movie.
Yeah.
Really like pulls the old heartstrings,
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right.
All right.
We made it through. This is definitely going to be a long,
retrospectively. This is a long one.
Yeah.
This is a long one.
Thank you for staying as long as you have. We really appreciate you listening to us talk about this film. It is like too good. I'm sure like there's a billion other things that we want to talk about, but it's like literally when you're watching this movie, there's just a billion little details that are just so fantastic that it's just too much to incorporate into a film.
This movie really rewards multiple viewings, is what I would say. That being said, this movie features Roman Griffin Davis, who did a fantastic job. I think we kind of led with that almost. We were really inspired by his performance to look at other outstanding performances from like kid actors, basically. So that's what we're going to go with for the next film. We have 3 choices for you. You want to...
Yeah, okay. These are really good films. So we have a really good lot for you guys. The first one is going to be A, Beasts of the Southern Wild, which was released in 2012, starring Quimbinzane Wallace as Hush Puppy.
She was the youngest ever?
I think
she's the youngest person ever nominated for Best Actor.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so next we have B is going to be 8th Grade. It was released in 2018, starring Elsie Fisher as Kayla, and it was directed by Bo Burnham. Really good, very intense. But next we have C, which is Room, not to be confused with The Room. Room was released in 2015, starring Jacob Tremblay as Jack. Directed by Lenny Abrahamson. And that is also a very intense movie with some cute, hilarious moments from Little Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And that's pretty much it for this video.
Yeah.
As always, thank you so much for watching. Thanks a lot for watching to this point, if you are here. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already.
Share us with your friends. Yes. Follow us on Instagram at There Will Be Podcast. On Twitter, we are Pod From a Basket. We are now on Spotify and Apple.
Actually, no. On Anchor, you just say, "Oh yeah, put my podcast on other apps," and I haven't heard anything back from Apple, so they're like the only ones.
Okay.
So, anyway, we are on Spotify, we're on Anchor, we're on a few other podcast outlets, so
follow us there.
Yeah.
Wherever you listen to podcasts, we should be there. Well, that being said, thank you again for watching. We adore you, and we adore watching movies and rating them and judging them and talking about them. So thank you so much. And you guys have a good night. We're going to leave you with some parting words.
Yes. Stay tuned for those parting words.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
That'd be a surefire way to get into his personal guards. Then we would become best friends.
I thought I was your best friend.
Yorkie, you're my second best friend. First place is reserved for the Fuhrer. So, unless you're Hitler, hiding in a fat little boy's body, I'd be happy with second place.
I guess I'm just a fat kid in a fat kid's body.